Hello everyone, I'm Nyasha and Lorina from Zimbabwe. I'm currently pursuing my bachelor's degree in data analytics and artificial intelligence in Britts University.
Hello everyone, I'm Titenda Sabina from Zimbabwe, currently pursuing my degree in BBA International Business Management at Britts University. As we come today on International Education Day, we're mainly focusing on exploring the dynamics of the current state of the education system, perspectives, as well as student growth.
So, to guide us with this insightful conversation, we're glad to have with us our Associate Vice President of Britts University, Mr.Gladwyn Victor. To start, say thank you very much for being here and to share this wonderful time with us. So to start with, would like you, sir, to share a bit about your education journey and the beginnings of a career.
First of all, thank you very much for having me invited for this podcast. And to talk about myself and my journey, firstly, I'd like to say that I generally put it across that I am an accidental academician. I've never designed or built for academics or for education sector per se, because I've done my basic qualifications in engineering. I've done my diplomas, my engineering, my further studies into civil engineering. I've been in the construction sector for 5 years. In the beginning of my career, I started as a junior engineer, moved up the ladder, was a project in charge for one of the projects, and accidentally I got the opportunity to address a class full of energetic young students who were aspiring to be civil engineers like me. And that was the first time I had a session or a lecture, if you have to call it across that way, with a group of around 20 odd plus students. And that is what kicked off my interest towards the field of education. Having said that, I'm not one of the most brightest students or the bachelors that I've been, but I certainly knew what made students like me do well in life. And over the past 13 years of my journey into education sector, I've handled various roles, right from professor to head of departments to program coordinators to head of academics for engineering sectors, for construction and multiple other engineering courses, international courses, skill development. I've been part of the jury for international world skills competitions that happens at global level. So yeah, that and a lot of time of my educational journey I've spent with international studies, with higher educations, undergrad programs, master's programs. So that has been my background, which has probably built over a period of years. And it's very safe to say that I know a thing or two about education now.
So proceeding, we've got certain questions we have for you. Okay. So that we can have an enlightenment or your perspective towards certain things, careers, and the educational system.
Okay.
Right. So my first question would be, what is the impact and relevance of the concept of studying abroad?
Well, study abroad, I do get that question a lot, to be very honest. If before I answer that question to you specifically, let me give my perspective of education or studies per se. See, education for me, or learning for me personally, I would say is a journey that starts with us when we are infants, where we know nothing of. From there, moving on to a point where we are in our last days, where we could say that we've understood certain aspects of the world and the things around us. So the journey in between is what I would say is your entire educational journey, where you start picking up things as in how you go, as in how you move, as in how you experience things. And that, in true sense, is what I feel is every individual's learning journey. So that being said, study abroad as a concept, which I do always mention to my students as well, that what we need to understand principally is the curriculums of the courses that are being offered at any study abroad campus, to an effective, more or less, are on the same guiding lines. Right? You will not find courses to the best of the best universities, to the worst of the worst institutes. you will not find difference in the course curriculum to be having variance of more than 30%. So that being said, what separates studying in your home country to studying anywhere abroad? Well, to answer that, I think I'll answer it in 5 points for you to make things simpler for you and for those who are listening to us. So the first and foremost, the most important aspect of study abroad is you are preparing yourself right from the word get-go on all aspects of being employable. The reason why I say this is, let's assume that you and I, we all would have been in our home country and started our education there, at least at a bachelor's level, like how you're now in your bachelor's. You wouldn't have spent a single moment of your hour till you complete your course thinking about what additional skills you need to have to get yourself a part-time or a day job, is it?
Yes.
And that's probably because you were kept well guarded in the comfort of your home, with your parental instincts, with your parents being there, taking care of every need of yours before it even utters from your mouth. So all of that being said, when you move out of your home, when you move out of your house, you start exploring facts. You start exploring your own attributes that will help you land an employment, even if it is a part-time employability, or you do a day job, maybe at a cafe or somewhere. You're working day on day to polish that skills, and what it does is it fills you with immense confidence and the potential to go and speak to anybody and express your will, your viewpoints, to get yourself employed. So that, I believe, is the first and foremost thing that it does. And it's not only me, so I recently read an article from McKinsey where it says that more than 65% of the students who study abroad have a very high probability of getting employed over the students who study in their home country. So that reinforces what I'm saying, that it builds you to be employable under whatever circumstances that you are put into. So that's the first thing. The other important aspect of studying abroad is the ability to be in touch with a diverse faculties and diverse student background. I'm a very strong believer that learning is not restricted to your whiteboards, where your faculty or your professors are downloading certain concepts to you. Learning is what happens in between that as well, where you come up with a question, you come up with a doubt, and you have it clarified with either your professors or your friends, and then you engaging in an intellectual conversation with your colleagues, your peers, right? So learning is what happens in between all of those. So it is very difficult to say that that learning is only restricted to the confinement of a classroom, and hence studying abroad gives you that perspective where your professors are not only from one background and one culture and ethnicity, but they also come from different backgrounds. So you could feel that in your classroom interactions when you interact with the professors. The kind of examples that they bring will be a very global perspective to you. When you're understanding any concept, then it's not a geographic centric understanding of a particular concept. It's a global perspective, because every module of yours may have a professor from a different nationality and background, and they would want to plug in what they bring from their home country and whatever exposure that they have had across the globe. So I very strongly believe that learning in a global context has far better conducive, or is provides a very conducive environment to the student than it would do in the confinement of someone's home country. Well, don't take me wrong, that I don't mean to say that the professors or the students back in our home countries are not intellectually strong enough. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the people that you come across with in an international campus, they would have had far more or a little more exposure than those that are there, restricted ourselves to our home country.
Can I ask you something.
Yes, please.
If we are moving away from our home countries to other countries to learn abroad, doesn't it then look like we aren't supporting our countries and we're now going to other countries to stay there and provide labor for other countries, yet we can't do the same for our local countries, and we can't learn there, and we can't provide education, the same education that we have, we can't give it to other people. We can't work for our countries. So is it really advisable to encourage people to leave their home countries, going abroad and learning there and working there and looking for job opportunities, rather than you maybe getting education in your countries, you work in your country so that you can upgrade and be some?
I understand your question, and it's a very well thought out answer or a point, which I would have covered in my 5 points. But since you brought it up, I'll emphasize on that. See, when I talk about study abroad, okay, I literally mean you go there, study, acquire skills. What you're talking about is students getting confused between studying abroad and moving to another country with immigration as their key goal, right? So I'm not in very favor of those thought processes that you need to, if you study abroad, you need to settle down there. It's not necessary. The global dynamics is changing today, more so than it was ever before, and countries which we've thought did not have a say in the world table are now having a seat in the world table with Brexit, with BRICS, and with Africa as a continent coming across very strong, powerful. So yes, it is very important that you study abroad, you gather experiences in the first world to see, to understand how things work, how things are structured differently, how things are made to cater to different sectors within the community. Take that learning back home and try and work it out with your home country to make and develop that country to reach to that level there. So that is what I believe is the true purpose of study abroad, and not immigrations via studies as a whole.
Okay, see, I have something to add on to that. I think it's also good that you have exposure to other countries. For an example, as you said, like you see something that is different. For example, if you compare like Dubai with our country, there's some things that I knew here when you came here, very new, in terms of infrastructure, stuff like that. So you can see even how people run their businesses, the online systems. Some of those things we don't have them back home. So it's a good thing that you have to see, and then when you go back to your home country, you can do the same things to your country.
Yes, definitely, and that is also one of the points of mine, that you get yourself exposed to global cultures, to global mindset in your classroom itself, where you would have people from multiple nationalities who studying with you, just having informal conversations with your peers and your classmates who are from different parts of the world gives you a lot of sense of understanding that your perception of the world is not the only perception that's there, and there are multiple ways how you can look at the same thing, right? And having said that, while global exposure definitely makes a lot of emphasis when it comes to study abroad, because it's not only the way how businesses function, the way how you communicate with people, but it is also to understand how communities work with each other, communities of different orientations, different thought processes, how they work together towards one common goal. That could be maybe a nation building. It could be developing a business as well. But that definitely adds a lot of perspective.
Are these kids out there going to be willing to go back with their acquired knowledge to their home countries? Because, for instance, someone enjoys the infrastructure and developments of Dubai, the UAE, right? Are they willing to go back to their country where there's not much of development, where the economic system is down, where there's political wars, where there's poverty? are they going to understand the concept that you're trying to explain to them, that you need to acquire knowledge from abroad, then take back your skills to your local country? Are they going to understand that fact? Because as far as I'm concerned, most of these kids out there, they think going abroad is like an escape. So what advice would you have so that people start having an open view about it, so that they acquire knowledge and then go back to their home countries and upgrade the systems there?
It's a very realistic point of view which you're putting it across. That standing today, will everybody be open to accept that? Well, the answer to it is no. Right? Today, you and I, we can only work towards spreading the awareness. We can only work towards, creating, starting the fire somewhere, right? The desire to go back and give back to your home country. But that being said, it cannot be, the first priority of every individual. We'll have to respect that, because we cannot put ourselves in the shoes of somebody else without having known and understood what has it taken for them to move out of their home country, come to a first world country, do their education there. So it's very difficult to categorize or to very specifically pinpoint that these sets of people are the right ones and these sets of people are the wrong ones. They all have their individual motivation to do things differently, and I strongly believe that we should be mindful about it, while always setting it across that the purpose of why we left our home is always there at the back of our mind. If we are able to just generate that thought process into every individual, I think our work is done.
Okay.
So moving on, the other important factor to study abroad is about self-discovery. As an individual, when you move outside your comfort home and you suddenly realize that you have to manage your own food, you have to manage your own clothes, you have to iron and fold and keep everything by yourself, it makes you more independent. It makes you, more confident of yourself, right? It develops a sense of empathy. When you stay away from your home, when you interact with people, and that's when the realization comes in that your point of view was not the only way of approaching a particular instance, and others' point of view also makes a lot of sense. That's where you as an individual develop a sense of empathy, which is very important, not only in personal development, but I would say to a very big extent in the corporate sectors these days. And if tomorrow you were to set up your own business, more the reason that you would have, you need to have an empathetic mindset to yourself if you want to be a business leader. So that is one of the important keys that you kind of understand about yourself in terms of your self-discovery. The other aspect is, we as humans are very adaptive, by our DNA. But you could only test your adaptability once you're put into the situation. You'd be surprised to, see and know what are the things that you could now do by yourself, because there is nobody to help you, which you earlier thought that, this is something which is beyond my ability to do, And this adaptability is what, develops into a personality that when you start entering into the business realm, once you've finished your qualifications, you start to adapt to work cultures. You start to adapt to different office setups, different scenarios, style of working, all of those aspects. And as I said earlier, confidence to face anybody, everybody, the confidence to put your point of view, all of this, overall helps build your total personality. Okay, and all of this is an outcome of study abroad.
But is it everyone who's comfortable in the areas they are in? Because there's students, who go and study abroad, but these students are facing racism. Do you think it's advisable for people to leave their home countries then, going to a place where they are made to feel less, they are made to feel uncomfortable, yet all you are trying to do is acquire knowledge and skill like any other kid? So I would like you to maybe explain to some of these people out there, because some people have fear to leave their home countries where they're comfortable, their comfort zone. They don't want to leave their home countries because they're scared of racism, they're scared that they won't be able to adapt and everything. So maybe I would love for you to maybe like encourage someone out there who can't face their fears.
See, it's a very a big area to talk about, but I limit myself to not talk about other parts of the world, but talk about UAE per se. This is the only country that has a ministry of tolerance, where the local nationals do not have any sort of insecurity. The country where 91% of its population is filled with expats. And what all of this says is that not all parts of the world and not all country is the same. Not all people think alike. Sometimes the fear is what we have built in our mind. How would you know how much of it is true and how much of it is not, unless you go and explore yourself in that situation? And see, it is also very subjective to say that experience does not mean having a rosy picture all the time. If I keep having good days every day, then it's not helping me to be a better person. Experience is a combination of good days, bad days, happy days, sad days. It's a mix of all. So yes, there are parts of the world, there are areas, there are instances where people will maybe put you down, maybe belittle you. But you have to understand that when somebody is trying to put you down, it is coming out of their place of insecurity and not yours.
Exactly.
Right? And what you can do the best in those situations is have confidence within yourself. Show your character of what you are made of. That's about it.
Thank you very much for the wonderful points. I'm sure we've learned and we have an open mind about the relevance and the importance of learning abroad. Us as Britts Imperial students, I think I now have an open mind. I think I now have the idea, because me coming to UAE, this was me just thinking of just leaving my home country. I wasn't really sure why exactly I was doing it, but I now have the idea. Thank you very much.
Glad that I could be of any assistance there.
You did.
So moving on to our second question. Do you think education has evolved over time? Nowadays, with so many online or certificate courses like LinkedIn, Coursera, and so on, should students choose such online university and study with them? Will it make a difference?
It could be a very controversial question, because whatever I say, you may believe that because I belong to the brick and mortar university background, my answers would be very biased. But I'll try and keep all my biases out when I try to answer this question. So, yes, with the introduction of the new technologies and the introduction now with data science, AIs and IoTs and all of those big buzzwords, there is a lot of skills that has to be tapped onto, which unfortunately is not very readily available in a conventional university and college environment, right? And hence the need to go and do a qualifications from an online format of an institution is always there, and I very strongly encourage that. But let's not forget what is the importance and relevance of a formal education setup. Universities, colleges, or schools, as a matter of fact, when you enter into these institutions, you're not only building knowledge for yourselves, but you're also developing a character to you. So when I say that you're developing a character, means you acknowledge, you know, you learn, you understand about interpersonal skills. How do you speak to people? Okay, you learn, you understand how to work together as a team, collaborate. You know, even in a group of 30, 50, 100 students, how to make your opinions count, how to voice out your ideas. So all of this is what happens in a conventional institute or a college or university, whatever you want to call that. That, I believe, at this present date, cannot be replaced by an online college or an online university. So, where and what role does these online institutions play? While you develop your general understanding towards whatever field or sector that you are in, okay, I would strongly recommend that when you enter into the market realm, the business realm, you need to acquire skills that are very relevant. While you have the overall perspective, understanding of how things function, right? But being relevant is also equally important. Now, unfortunately, not all institutes have evolved themselves to be to make their courses very relevant to today's time. And I will not blame them also, because we are growing so fast in today's context. The technologies are growing so fast. It's very difficult to catch up to that. If, let's say, if we were to carve out a curriculum over one piece of technology today, I think it will not serve purpose for more than 2 years. Because there is an upgradation, or that part of the piece then becomes absolute, and then there is something else which replaces that. So, having said all of that, the importance or the relevance of these online setups makes a lot of sense when you are upskilling yourself. And also instances in terms of who is imparting this information to you. Because you come across that there are a lot of business leaders and tech gurus who are the ones, they are the ones who are running these online courses, or they are the ones who are delivering these courses. So yes, to understand a concept and to know it from them directly is a phenomenal experience. And we should equally engage in those kind of learnings. And I would say, why restrict only to certain platforms that you mentioned? YouTube today has a world of information around it. All that you have to do is you need to know how to navigate yourself to the right and to the genuine source of information. If you're able to crack that skill, I think yes, online education could be a good added benefit to your conventional format of education.
So, when someone is doing an online course with someone who's not doing an online course, like, is there any big difference on how they will behave out there, like their experience? Because with someone who's not doing an online course, they're more engaged in school. They do discussions with others, because it's how us students understand some of the things. Like when we discuss with others, when we get exposure, even out of education, we can do some things like sports, we can do games, we can do debates, and so forth. So, the impact, is it bad for people who are doing online courses?
To answer that question, I feel yes, there is a stark difference between somebody doing an online course only and somebody who's doing course in person or in the regular format. And it has to do a lot with the style or the format of learning. See, for an individual, our attention span, thanks to social media, the world of social media, our attention spans are going lesser and lesser with every passing day, as as the reels on Instagrams are getting smaller in their duration. So, with the generation at present and the generation that will come, having them hooked on to for a longer duration and making them have a longer attention span is going to be a challenge. And with online education, it's very easy to get lost, because it's a one-way, one-directional learning where you're just receiving, and you're receiving. there are a lot of platforms available that are trying to make online education equally interactive by adding in a lot of tidbits in between their delivery, so that the balance between the attention span and the engagement is well taken off. That is good. So if it is happening in that format, I would say it is yet better in a lot of sense than a very one-directional communication that happens in an online setup. But having said that, being a physical setup, it activates all your senses, right? And everybody falls under different categories of learners. So you have kinesthetic learners, you have kinematic learners. They're different. Students who understand by listening, students who understand by seeing and listening, and there are students who understand by doing things by themselves. So there are various formats of learners. Having tapped onto all those in an online setup is very difficult. Okay, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very difficult. And whatever understanding I have, there are not many online educators who are there out who cater a particular course addressing all of these needs and requirements. But there are few who do very well engage themselves. So yeah, if you are able to find the right balance between the courses, I think it would add some sense of value to your entire learning. But other than that, I feel at this point of time today, I cannot comment on the future, because with the introduction to AI, things could go anywhere going forward. But at this point of time, I think online format of learning is a very good complement to the brick and mortar format of education.
Thank you very much, Say. I think I understood, and I think it's also good that you can do the online courses, though you can have a little bit of disadvantages, but it's also good to do online courses. Thank you very much.
So my next question is, should the becoming generation only focus on tech-based programs, and what will happen to those students who are studying courses like accounting, finance, and marketing?
A very relevant question in today's time, because there's a lot of fear which is surrounding, especially in the younger generation, and to a lot of extent to the earlier generation as well, that with AI coming into place, with technology and tech revolution coming into place, will there be jobs available that were there earlier? Smaller fears to bigger fears. So people, drivers, taxi drivers, cab drivers are feared that autonomous driving will take away their jobs in future. So these kind of fears is always there. Let me help address this question with giving a little context to this. Right? So when you talk about AI, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? The very closest that you would have got your first hand to that, ChatGPT.
Yes.
So ChatGPT, or what do you mean by GPT? GPT is nothing but it's a general purpose technology, and it's not the first time that we are having such an innovative technology coming into place. Okay. You go back to 1800 centuries. The innovation of steam engine was a path-breaking revolution that happened. It was a path-breaking invention that happened around that time. To give you a very classic example of how things change, making clothes, textile, was happening through yarns. What is yarn? There were yarns where there would be one person behind a yarn and he's weaving clothes. Right? So in a very conventional standard yarn which used to be there, a person could weave out, let's say, around 100 meters of cloth every hour. With the introduction of steam engine based yarns, where the action of the arms moving back and forth, so that the threads of the cloth could interweave. With the help of steam engine now, they were able to produce 10,000 meters of cloth per hour. Right? So what happened then? There were lesser machines needed, and because there were lesser machines needed, there were lesser people needed. Right? And hence there was a lot of cry that around that time also that the people, the textile mill workers, they were losing out their jobs because of the introduction of steam-based engine in the weaving or the textile industry. But On the flip side of it, what you also have to understand is back then, because transportations were not very easy, not very easy to commute from point A to point B. These textile mills were very closer to the places where the manufacturing was then to be done. But now with the introduction of this technology, they could have these milling textile mills in far off places, and the material could be transported there. Because by that time, with steam coming into place, we were able to have the railways developed by then. The steam engines developed by then. So transportation opened up, and all these people who were displaced because of steam textile yarns coming in were getting absorbed into a newer sector that was into transportation sector, into railways and many other roles like that. So that being said, with every GPT or every general purpose technology that comes in, there is going to be displacement, and that displacement is not meant to make you redundant. The technology is to empower you with more capabilities. That is something that we have to understand very well, because in the earlier 2000s, when computers came into picture, it became accessible rather to every household. The fear that now those who were doing clerical works, account keeping, which was happening in books, now could be done on the computers, on the systems through Excel. Excel came, of course, very later on, but books. They feared that our job is in danger. But what happened? Those who were able to adopt to that technology were able to grow better, were able to do things faster, and were most likely to be absorbed across sectors. And then eventually, as generations passed, we started to live with that technology. So I still remember when I was still studying back in my school days, it was told to us that you should know how to function computers. You should know how to use computers, because that is a very important skill that any workplace you go, they will ask you that do you know how to operate a computer? Do you know the basic, the MS Office, just the words, the Excel sheets, the presentation, those aspects. But in today's date, nobody asks that question, do you know how to use and operate a computer? Why? Because it is understood. My 5-year-old kid, they are well equipped to use tech gadgets. They know how to work around themselves with their phones, with laptops and iPads and other things. So with generation that grows in, they evolve with the technology. So now, in this point of time, people, employers will not ask you questions that, do you know how to operate a computer? They would rather ask you questions like, do you know how to work with data search engines? Do you know how to work with AI-based chatbots or X and Y and Z? So these technologies are always meant to empower us, to give us more strength, to give us more ability, so that repetitive, monotonous, redundant activities now could be taken care and be executed by the technology, while we look at a bigger and brighter horizon. We develop things which is yet unexplored, untapped towards. So that is something which is very important. And also to support what I said, with every technology or every innovative invention that comes into place, there are different categories in which people behave. You can broadly classify them into 3 types. First category are the people who are called the enablers. What they do is they make these technologies available to people around. They work with these technologies to work towards developing it. So these are the people who are the developers, the tech developers. These are researchers who do further researching, probing into what more could be explored within that piece of tech or invention. So they are those categories. The second category of people are the ignorers, the one who do not give much relevance to these, thinking that they've cracked in their business model and it does not affect them, it does not impact them. This is just a gimmick; it will come and it will go away. The classic example, if I have to give, is big companies like Nokia, like Kodak. They were in the prime of their business when it came to mobile phones, I believe no brand was as popular as Nokia in its time. They were the first to bring a lot of tech to the mobile, the first to have a color displayed phone, first to have camera enabled phones, and videographic phones and music and all those aspects. What happened to them now? Where are they in the picture? Nowhere to be seen. Because when Android came into picture as an operating platform, while the rest of the players started adopting it, they said, no, our system is good enough. We would stick to it, and they ignored the technology that came into picture. And the resultant of that is they are nowhere today in the phone landscape. If we have to talk about the business of phone manufacturers, they're very negligible towards their contribution. Similar is Kodak. When photography was at its apex, Kodak used to manufacture films. So they said, the only way to have pictures developed would be through our films. And when memory discs and digital cameras were coming into picture, they completely ignored that fact. And what happened? It got wiped off of the market with digital cameras coming into picture, and photographic reels being replaced by memory cards. Right? So ignorers have their own taste of it. And the third category of the people are those who are the users, the end-based users, like you, like me, like the businesses that adopts this culture, that adopts this technology to do something better with this. Right? Now, even in terms of users, I would say the users are also then two categories, if I have to put it across. One is those set of people who innovate with the technology, the innovative users. So that's where you have Elon Musk, who understood the problem statement and the potential of having electric driven cars, and he went out of the way. He innovated a car that runs completely on electricity. There were hybrid cars available before as well, but nobody gave a thought that we could completely move to electric. He was innovative in his way, and Tesla is a brand which has to be reckoned across the globe in the automotive sector. Similar as Bill Gates, when computing was still developing, he was the one who got computers and into every household, with Windows coming into picture, with their operating systems coming into picture. So these are people who innovate with the recent technology. There are endless people who work around with this. Mark Zuckerberg, who with the help of internet came up with Facebook to connect people. So the birth of social media was, to a larger extent, can be contributed to Mark Zuckerberg and his innovative thinking at that point of time. And then there are the other categories who are the early adopters of these technologies, who once the technology comes in, they are not in resistance to it, but they accept that and look at the possibility of how to work around with it. And the biggest success story of the early enablers would be Barack Obama. While in those days electoral campaigns were run very in person, he was the first person to, at least in the US presidency candidate, he was the first person to take the election campaigns on Twitter. And what it did for him, he got the presidency. So early enablers are people who grab the opportunity by both hands and look at how you build over this. Now, circling back to your question, that does this make sense? Should we all migrate to tech-based courses? The answer is no. The functionalities which are otherwise there, recruitment as a process, HR as a department, will be there. But there will be a lot of developments with AI coming into picture. Maybe the way how you interview people face to face and the multiple rounds of screenings that you do to select a candidate, maybe that could be revolutionized through AI. Right? Accounting, finance, and banking sectors. Even though with blockchain technology coming into picture, there will be better, more secure ways of banking. But does that mean that the whole shell and core of banking and the entire concept of banking will get away and everything will be on phone? We never know. But the point here is that technologies will keep on coming. I was talking to you about the GPTs. Earlier, every new GPT was spaced in a gap of 100 years. So every technology came in a gap of 100 years. Now, if you look at it, a new technology comes in every 10 years, right? And going forward, it will get even shorter. So what we need to do is we need to embrace every technology that comes in, look at it that how we could adapt this, and make an effort to engage with it in a way that it not only empowers you to do your things better, but also puts you at the forefront of the race. Because let's give it a fact that if today, let's say you are to apply for an HR role, okay, you come from your formal education, your master's degree in HR and human resources, all of that, and there are 5 other candidates like you sitting in for the same interview, right? But at the same time, if you have taken the extra effort of having understood how AI could be used into this, or how you could screen through a lot of CVs with the help of data mining and those aspects, you could be a potential candidate amongst the others who would have been equally qualified by you, like you. But what sets you apart is you are a person or a candidate who has the ability to adapt that whenever it comes in, and you'll be able to figure your way around through it. So what we need to do is, with all these technologies coming in, we should have an open mind to embrace it, and not to be scared and run away from it, or fear for our life and our jobs, thinking that this is going to take away our jobs. To the worst, what GPT does is it replaces people who are not ready to accept it. I think that answers your question.
Okay, so we're moving on to our last question. Exploring the startup landscape, is it accessible to everyone? Can management students seamlessly fit into this dynamic environment of innovation and entrepreneurship?
Yes, that is a very buzzword, startup. It's been a very startup culture these days, where everybody is keen towards having their own venture. It's a good sign, because the future is not for the job seekers, it's for the job givers. And how do you become a job giver is when you have your own setup. And this is where, the overall ecosystem is somewhat supporting that to an extent. That is, earlier, if you had to set up your own business, there were a lot of resources that went into having a business model set up. You may have the engineering to, you may have the product, you may have the engineering to have the right business in place, but just having that did not solve the purpose, or did not make your business established. There were a lot of pieces to the puzzle which you needed. You need human resource, you need people who could work around with your finances, people who could take care of your marketing, people who could take care of your sales, and all of those aspects. Now, what has happened is, with the revolution in the tech industry coming into place, you don't need so many human resources, right? You look at these influencers that you find on social media. Every influencer is an entrepreneur by themselves, right? They may have a couple of team, as a part of who does their recordings and editing and processing and those aspects of it. But then otherwise, majority of the things are being replaced through tech-based things. Nowadays, photos get edited in tech, and the recent is there is AI has been very successfully able to create deep fake, is where the celebrity doesn't have to stand in front of the camera and endorse a product. AI generates an entire motion-based video of a celebrity doing that. The celebrity has to just endorse, saying that, okay, I'm okay with this piece of work to be used on my behalf. So things are evolving, right? And all of this is being conducive towards somebody who wants to enter into a startup culture. And to sum it up, in a way, I feel this is the right time, because you see there are a lot of investors in the market where earlier it was a difficult task getting funding for any of your projects. the concept of VC and angel investors were not very predominantly known or available rather in earlier times. But now every startup has millions and millions of funding which is given just at the stage of initiation. Not even when you've shown certain sustainable business, and because of that there are more takers and more and more youths who are getting involved into this culture of startup, which I believe is very good. But there are certain key take homes that we should always keep in mind, especially those who are thinking of having some startup of their own. A couple of key pointers, if I may suggest. Your business idea or your startup idea, it should be something that solves an existing or a future problem. Okay, not a product that enhances your experience. Okay, what do I mean by that? There would be a lot of people, or I would say everybody in the globe, would have consumed a painkiller at least once in their lifetime, right? Which is there's a body ache somewhere. Okay, let's say migraines or headaches. You have an headache. You would have had a headache once in your lifetime, and you would have consumed the pill for the painkiller or the headache or the migraine, whatever you call it. On the other hand, how many of the people across the world would have taken a medicine that is to enhance the brain's potential to retain information? There are enhancers which are there available, right? Certain prescriptions that enhances your retaining capacity of your brain. How many of us would have known about it, or rather would have consumed about it? So that's where I'm coming from, that if there is a problem statement available, then your product which is addressing that problem statement, you would have more success in your your business. Then I'm not saying that those who are in the enhancement business are not successful, but the percentage of success is comparatively not that high. So always look at having your business built around a problem statement, either of today or of tomorrow, which you can address with your invention, technologies, or whatever you want to do around it. So that's that. The second thing which I would point out that every startup business should keep in mind is that your product should have a USP to it. What do you mean by USP? Do you know what is USP?
Yes, unique selling point.
Right. So unique selling point or proposition was something which was known earlier. In these days, it is unique show-off proposition.
Okay.
So your product should be designed in such a way that it has a very good show-off value to it. Why do you think people have iPhones in their hand? So let's say if we remove the Apple logo from that, how many of us would be ready to pay the same amount of money for the phone that does not have that Apple logo to it?
A few people actually.
So iPhones or Apple products have created a niche, a status symbol around it. That that if you're carrying an iPhone to yourself, you are someone. You can afford. You have a good lifestyle to yourself.
That's very true.
So that's what if you're coming up with a startup idea, make sure that your product has a good show of value to itself.
Okay.
Right. The third thing I feel is in terms of how you want to scale the business, always make sure that your product has a network effect. Now, when I say network effect to it, not only does it mean the networking marketing style, the chain-based marketing, not only that, but your product, which in its due course of how you market it, it creates more people joining that link. So you look at the entire influencers concept. What is that? There's one person who influences, let's say, 10 million of them, and he endorses a product. Right? He says that I've tried this, it's good, you should try it as well. Now, all of those people within his circle of influence, his or her circle of influence, now will start using that, right? Because somebody that they are influenced by has suggested. And once they consume it, whether or not they like the product or not, they would then go on and pass that information to their circle of influence. and that cascading effects keep on happening. So it's always important that if you are planning to scale your setup to a big level, you should look at the possibility of it having a network effect. The next point is, it is very important at the earlier stage to build the brand first and then the business. Generally, what happens is young startups, or they're very in earlier stages, very focused and to engage into growing the business. And that has been the case of lately. I do study a lot of startups that come across. So what happens is, in order to grow their business, they pump in a lot of funded money, in order to grow the business. What it does is, it creates a demand, a superficial demand which you have created, right? And then once it's fizzled out, then the demand is no more the same with the same intensity as you had created earlier by pumping in money, right? So what is important is, take time, take energy to create your brand first. Whatever may be your product, whether it's a skincare product, it's a health product, it's a technology, whatever it is. And you students, you guys are young and you still have a lot of time to do for your journey and your career to take off. So I think starting now, you should focus on towards your brand building. It could be that in the beginning there are only 100 of them who are aware of your product or what you have to offer. But as and how you keep working on your brand, you will be able to build over that, with time progresses. And once you've established the brand, then business will automatically grow. It's a resultant, it's a natural resultant by itself. So you should really focus towards that. And the last thing which I feel, you should focus in an industry or a sector where the consumer's behaviors are also changing. See, every business is consumer driven, right? You should focus on setting up a business model where the consumer behaviors are changing. So what do I mean when I say that? Earlier, you used to go to a shopping center only when you had to buy something, right? Now, with all these shopping apps that are there available on the phone, when you have nothing to do, you end up on that shopping app just to browse through it, and then end up doing some impulsive shopping, right? So you look at the trajectory of how the behavior of the consumer is changing. Earlier, purchases were very need driven. Now it is not need driven. It has not to do with the social impact it creates. If my friends are having something like that, I need to have it. If the person I look up to is having a pair of Jordans, I need to have a pair of Jordans as well. If somebody has an iPhone, I need to have that as well. So the behavior of how the consumer today looks at, and also to a certain extent the spending capacity of people has also increased. Earlier people were very much conservative when it comes to spending. They were, and depending on which part of the world you come from, savings was a very looked and sought after practice, that you used to spend money, but at the same time ensure that you saved a lot of money to yourself as well. But nowadays, you see with every generation that passing through, they want to live their life and not save for tomorrow, which they're not aware of. So the behavior of the consumers are changing across various sectors. So try looking at building your business around something that where that the consumer mindset is changing, and you have a product that will be able to address to that change, right? So having said that, again going back to your question, I really believe that students, especially management students, have all that it takes to have their own business built up, right? Whether you want to do it all by yourself, whether you want to collaborate your talents with people that you know around who have that as their areas of strength and specialization. But yes, the future is for job givers than the job seekers.
The answer is more clear and it's more understandable.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
And we really loved the ideas and the open mind.
On the occasion of International Day of Education, what is your closing statement to our student community?
Right, so my parting notes or my two pieces of advice to all the students out there would be: one, learning is a lifelong thing. It's a lifelong journey. It's not a 3 years or a 4 years program. So make sure that throughout your lifespan you engage in learning in some format or the other, whether physical, online, whichever it could be. But evolving learning is important. You may take vacations in between your journey, right? But don't take a break. Keep making yourself aware of what is happening around you. That's one. Second, I would strongly recommend and suggest that all of us, on a very timely occasion, make sure that we introspect ourselves, our abilities, our skills, and check and see how relevant are we to today's world when it comes to the technologies that is evolving, whether it comes to the way how businesses function, the way how things are moving across the globe. How relevant are we, and what do we need to do starting today to make ourselves relevant for today and for the coming future? And I think if one looks at these two aspects, I think growth is inevitable.
Wishing you all a happy International Education Day. To all our listeners, stay tuned for more engaging discussions and interesting topics. Signing out, Tatina.